Picture this. You're driving home after a long day at work, the radio on low, you're tired. You're not really paying attention. And then, coming out of a bend, you lose control. The car leaves the road, breaks through the barrier, slides down the embankment. It comes to rest in the long grass of a triangular strip of land, wedged between 3 highway interchanges. Your phone flew somewhere in the crash, screen smashed, no signal anyway. You're in a dead zone between the infrastructure. All around you, a few dozen meters away in every direction, thousands of cars are moving at full speed. Crossing is impossible. You'd be hit before you made 3 steps. You get up. You wave your arms, you shout, you do everything a person does when they desperately need to be seen. The cars keep moving. The world is right there, and you're completely invisible to it. Do you think people should stop to help you? Of course, it's unthinkable that no one would eventually notice. Someone will call, someone will turn around. That's what you think from the grass verge. Now picture the same scene. You're driving home after a long day. You're tired. And then coming out of a bend, you catch a glimpse of a figure on a strip of land between the interchanges. A man, disheveled, possibly hurt, making wide, desperate gestures in your direction. Would you stop? Probably not. You're doing 70. Stopping on a highway is dangerous. You don't know what happened or who he is. Emergency services exist for this. Someone else will call it in. You're tired. You're heading home. Your life is organized around you, and that man on the verge is not part of it. This is not a thought experiment. It's the subject of a novel published in 1974. Concrete Island tells the story of Robert Maitland, an architect, prosperous, early 40s, a wife, a mistress, a practice that's doing well, the kind of life neatly organized around itself, every hour accounted for. One evening, he loses control coming off a motorway flyover. His car breaks through the crash barrier and comes to rest on a triangular island of wasteland wedged between 3 highway interchanges. He has a leg injury. He is a few meters from civilization. Thousands of drivers pass within reach of him every hour. He waves his arms, he shouts, he builds fires from whatever he can find. Nobody stops. The first days are a fight to stay alive. He eats what drivers throw from their windows, wrappers, scraps, he drinks rainwater. He explores the island and finds he is not alone. 2 other people already live there, cast off by a society that has also lost sight of them. And then something happens in the novel that Ballard describes without explaining. An opportunity to escape presents itself. A moment when Maitland could reach the road, get noticed, go home. He doesn't take it. And it's not the last time. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, he stops wanting to leave. He begins to organize the island, to mark out its territory, to exercise a kind of authority over the other 2 inhabitants. When rescue finally becomes possible, when someone notices him, when the way out is right there, Maitland turns it down. Ballard doesn't tell us why. He just shows us that it happens and leaves us with a question. Why would a man choose to stay trapped on a concrete island when he could leave? In 1840, Alexis de Tocqueville published the 2nd volume of Democracy in America. He had spent years observing the young American democracy and came away with genuine admiration, and a very specific worry. I see an innumerable multitude of men, alike and equal, constantly circling around in pursuit of the petty and banal pleasures with which they glut their souls. Each of them living apart, is a stranger to the fate of all the others. Liberal democracy frees each person from inherited hierarchies, from communities they didn't choose, from obligations they never agreed to. It gives them the right to be themselves, and in doing so it cuts them off from each other. For most of human history, people needed each other to survive. Safety, food, warmth, care. None of it could be secured alone. An isolated individual was a dead individual. Community was a condition of survival, not a lifestyle choice. It was from that necessity, from mutual dependence in the face of forces that would break any one person in isolation, that bonds were made. You knew your neighbor counted on you, you knew you counted on him. That reciprocity didn't need to be stated, it was built into the structure of existence itself. Modernity gradually took over everything mutual aid used to provide. Distribution networks for food, hospitals for care, the state for defense. Each of these is a genuine improvement, but something was lost in the exchange. When you no longer need your neighbor to survive, the structural reason to know him disappears with it. The bond was functional, the function has been outsourced to an institution. People haven't become worse, the architecture simply no longer requires them to be connected. The drivers on the motorway passing Maitland are not indifferent by choice, they are indifferent by design. The motorway was built to keep their eyes forward, at a speed that makes anything off to the side invisible. Stopping for a stranger is not a necessity in this world, it is an option, a costly one. And in a world designed around individual efficiency, that option rarely gets taken. Emergency services exist for this. Someone else will call, and Maitland himself, before the crash, would have made exactly the same call. Byung-Chul Han adds one final layer. Digital connection does not resolve this, it masks it. We are connected all the time, hundreds of contacts, thousands of interactions a day. But what we're connecting to most of the time are mirrors. We seek confirmation of ourselves, not an encounter with someone genuinely other. We are not alone in any visible sense, but we are not seen, exactly like Maitland on his concrete island. On the island, Maitland tries. He shouts, he signals, he looks for ways to cross. He uses everything the place offers to make himself visible, and nothing answers. The system he's trapped inside has no provision for this. The motorway was not built to be stopped, the flow was not built to be interrupted. The indifference has no face, no intention, no point of entry. There is nothing to fight against. And gradually, with no identifiable moment where everything shifts, Maitland stops. There was no decision, no calculation, no morning where he woke up and concluded that the effort wasn't worth it. There was just a point where the energy required to keep pushing against something structural, something that doesn't even register his existence, was no longer available. He simply stopped. What he does next is worth paying attention to. He doesn't wait. He doesn't hope in silence. He organizes, he maps the territory of the island. He establishes a kind of order over the small space he controls. He structures his survival, his days, his interactions with the other two inhabitants. On this patch of land nobody wanted, he becomes a sort of sovereign, precarious, absurd, but real. When the chance to leave finally comes, when someone notices him, when the exit is right there, something in him no longer responds to the call. He has not refused, he has simply ceased to reach. The world on the other side of the motorway is the same world that didn't see him. Going back means going back into the indifference. But without the island, without the territory, without the fragile control he has built, he has moved from passive solitude to active solitude. The difference is not in the solitude itself, it's in the relationship he has with it. He is no longer a man who suffers it, he is a man who has organized it, who has made it into something that belongs to him. And this shift from the person who keeps trying to the person who has stopped without ever deciding to stop is perhaps the most precise description of what modern societies do to the people who live inside them. They don't break people, they don't make them unhappy in any obvious way. They wear them down quietly until the island starts to feel like home. This shift from passive solitude to active solitude is not unique to Maitland. It is something modern societies produce quietly, at scale, without anyone deciding it. Faced with a world that has no built-in moment for seeing you, people adapt. They lower their expectations. They invest in what's controllable, their flat, their routine, their phone, their carefully selected and filtered relationships. They stop holding conversations open with strangers. They stop responding to the neighbor who seems to need help. They drive past the hitchhiker. Not a deliberate withdrawal, a gradual one. The kind that happens when the energy required to stay open keeps meeting something that doesn't meet it back. And somewhere along the way, without noticing the crossing, you stop being someone who suffers loneliness and become someone who reproduces it. You become the driver on the highway, victim and actor, both sides of the same coin. This novel was written in 1974, before the internet, before smartphones, before permanent connection became the norm, and loneliness became a visible paradox. Ballard had already seen the movement. He understood that this was not about technology or moral decline or people being unkind. It was about architecture, about the way modern societies are built, efficient, autonomous, individual, and about what that construction does inevitably to the people living inside it.